All right, the second part of today's lesson, or tonight's lesson, I should say, is about using linear models, but in a data situation. So a scatter plot is a collection of two variable data points. Two variable like an x and a y. And so when we collect data, it doesn't always fit a perfect pattern. So for instance, we might collect data and it might look like this. That doesn't exactly remind me of a perfect line. However, it does look like it has a general trend like a line. So what we want to do is we want to find a line that goes through the data that follows the pattern. We call this a trend line. It's a line that goes through the middle of the data, but it must follow the pattern of the data. I say that because I've had kids do this. I've had kids say, well, this line goes through the middle of the data. Yeah, but you missed the point. It doesn't follow the trend of the data. It doesn't follow the data. Okay, maybe it goes through one central part of the data, but it doesn't go through the majority of the data. So we want a line which follows the trend and goes through the middle of the data. Now, how many points do we need in order to come up with that particular trend line? We know that we need 2 points. Do not pick your points close together. Pick your points further apart. These points must be on the trend line. Now, for all intents and purposes, folks, you are going to draw the best line through the data that you can. I mean, you're going to get out a ruler. You're going to make your own scatter plot. You're going to get out a ruler. You're going to draw that line the best you can. Well, guess what? Everybody in the room is going to have a slightly different line. And I am talking about everybody in the room. But it's only going to be slightly different. Now, we need 2 points that are on that line. I know you think they have to be data points. They do not. Can be estimated. These 2 points can be estimated. Sometimes my line goes through a data point. Yes, you may use the data point. But don't look at it and say, oh, I'll just draw a line so it goes through 2 of the data points and then I can use those 2 points. Don't do that. That's not what a trend line is. A trend line goes through the middle the best you know how. So you're going to have to estimate 2 points. In fact, maybe on the test I'll say you can't use data points, because I want you to estimate them. They have to be far away from each other, because if you pick them real close together, you can actually make a mistake. You can actually make the line much different looking. And then when you put those 2 points, obviously then you can find the slope. And then you can write your equation. And make sure you always end up with y equals mx plus b when you're writing your equation. Okay, that'll be an absolute must. Okay, now, I'm going to show you an example from the book for lack of time and plotting points and all that good stuff. This is from example 4. It says a woman is considering buying the 1993 car shown in the photo. Obviously, that's the photo. She looks a little different than you probably pictured her, but there she is. Okay? She researches prices for various years of the same model and records the data in a table. So she has the years and the prices. So they also show you that they're going to use 4 for 1994, 5 for 1995, and so on. And let Y be the price of the car. Draw a scatter plot. And then it says decide whether a linear model is reasonable. So when I look at this data, it looks really like a linear model is pretty reasonable, since the points really kind of fall close to what we call a line. So we draw the trend line, right? We're drawing the best line through the data that we can. It does not mean that we try to connect data points. It means we try to draw the line through the data. Draw a line that has about the same number of data points above and below it. That's a good way to look at it. Use the slope and the y-intercept to find the equation of the line. The equation of the trend line in the graph is, now they kind of really jumped ahead. In this particular example, you see they didn't show you any of the work of finding the slope. They didn't show you which 2 points they used. You are going to have to pick 2 points, one here, one there, and you're going to have to find your slope and then write your equation of your line and find the y-intercept. So anyway, it says that if we're going to use the 1993 model, that would be an x value of 3, and if you plug that into the equation, you end up getting a fair market price of $4,100, right? So asking $4,200 is fairly reasonable. It's not outrageous. We'll definitely do an example of this in class, making sure you understand how you have to come up with the equation of your line. Now, what makes a scatter plot reasonable for a line? Some of them are not going to be very good. All right, at the top of the page, there are some pictures here. There's a word that we call correlation, which means how close the data fits to a line. Obviously, the trend line in this picture would be a positive trend line, but you can see that the data doesn't fall close to the line. So we call this one a weak positive correlation. But if the data is closer together, we call it a strong positive correlation. If the data looks like it's going in a negative direction, but it's not real close to the line, then we call that weak negative correlation. Or we could have strong negative correlation where all the points lie close to the line, or we could have no correlation at all where the data points are just all over the place. You need to know those 5 terms and their pictures, because I will ask you questions on quizzes and tests such as, given this scatter plot, how would you describe it? And you have to pick one of the 5 based upon the picture that you see. All right, so know those particular descriptions, and we'll look at that stuff in class. Have a great evening.